It's the Morning Star Drive on 107.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how are you doing? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Thursday, May 4th, and so happy for you joining us, and we are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Sermons in the Sky, it's Question and Answer Thursday, and of course, commentaries and news on what is happening around today in this history. All right, everyone, how are you doing? Yes, it is Thursday. We're getting to the end of the week. I hope you guys enjoyed the Wednesday message last night, and you received a lot of grace and fire from it. But as I always say, make sure you pray for your leaders. They're doing such an amazing and awesome job. Make sure that you give them good feedback so that they can make their sermons better and better, and they can do things together with the Holy Spirit and put fire into everyone's hearts. If you haven't yet, go ahead, leave a like, a comment. Let's build this community. That's the number one thing we want. Really happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. And of course, the weekends, we have other programs coming up too. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. So, man, this is really hard for me to talk right now because, you guys ever have those, like, I think when I was sleeping, I bit my tongue. You know what I mean? So, you have like, I bit the side of my tongue. So every time I speak, it's rubbing against my teeth and it just hurts. And that's why for me, I'm just like, it's so hard for me to speak. Well, I'm trying to speak even more clearly, but every time I try to speak clear, like even when I'm doing that I can feel my tongue, that the part I bit, and it's just rubbing against the side of my tooth and it just bothers me. But I know that eventually as I start speaking more and more, I'll get used to it. But man, does it bother me. It really does. But and of course, I haven't had my latte yet. So that makes it even worse for me. I had this morning, because I'm on a different time zone, I was talking to a friend of mine in Asia. And I went to, I woke up for pre-dawn, everything else. And, I'm still on a little bit of jet lag now. It's much better than before. Last night I went to sleep before 10 and I woke up around 3:48, something around that time. And I love it. I really do. I love being on this new time, and I'm doing my best not to sleep so late. And the only reason I slept a little bit later yesterday, which was a lot easier because I was watching the Lakers versus the Golden State Warriors NBA basketball game, and that's the only reason I slept around 10. Usually, if there's nothing on, man, I am just like I'm ready to knock out around 8:30 now. So really, really happy. I went to sleep at 10, woke up just before 4, but then after I was talking to a friend. And I kind of missed my workout time. I went a little bit late. But I'm back to, I'm back over here. And I'm very, very grateful and thankful that I'm able to talk to you guys once again. Did you guys see the timestamps from yesterday? Charlie, you're doing a great job, but you don't need to do it anymore. I'm already doing the timestamps beforehand. So just know that you don't have to do the timestamps. I will make sure I will do the timestamps before it comes out. But thank you anyways for offering. It's not easy for people to do it when it first comes out. So I will make sure I do the timestamps, and please leave a comment below if you like the timestamps or not, or is it something that you even go into or not, right? Do you even use the timestamps or not? That's something I'm genuinely curious about is, do the timestamps matter to you? Like, are you looking for a specific section, or do you like this new format? You just kind of listen through it, and it's a lot easier for you guys. So yes, I actually almost didn't do it. I almost didn't do it because it's not actually in my routine yet. I have to remind myself. So even yesterday's podcast, I just remembered 10 minutes before the podcast came out. But definitely, I will make it my routine. So it's going to keep coming. The timestamps will come out, and I hope it will benefit you guys too. Actually, I had a really cool comment yesterday. I was talking about my weight yesterday. Like, I'm like 179, not feeling like a man because I'm usually at 180, whatever it is. And I had this comment from New York. I used to be a head leader there, and there's one family with 3 boys. They're awesome. I've known them since they were super young, and the youngest was like, wait, I weigh more than Pastor Scott. Like, here is a kid. His name's Max, by the way. And I've known him since he was super young. I used to play at his house. I used to play with him all the time. I've seen him growing up, but I'm not even sure how old he is. But when I was meeting them, they were super young. Like, even the eldest boy at that time, I think, was just getting into middle school. I think it was around that time. And I think now he's in university. But it was quite shocking to me to hear that this kid who's like a third of my age is weighing more than me, which is a lot, right? So, but it's kind of cool. It's kind of fun to know that these kids in Provi are growing really big. I'm not even sure how tall he is, but it was just kind of one of those like, oh yeah, I remember him. Oh my gosh, he's bigger than me. You know, I bet you he's taller than me too. So Max, if you're out there, let me know your height also, your height and your weight. Because I'm at 180 centimeters, which is like, what, 5'11 and a half, whatever it is. And about 179, 180 pounds. Well, 180 pounds if I drink a lot more water. But let me know, put it in the comments, Max, what is your height and your weight? And how old are you too? Because, the last time when I first met you, I met you such a long time ago. But it's good to see that you're growing to this big boy. I was thinking that when I knew Max, I think he was someone I looked at and says, man, this guy's going to be like a linebacker on a football team. But either way, what do you guys think of the poll? Poll is out. What do you eat when you're down? For me, I put ice cream. It's either ice cream or super good food. Something that kind of like raises my endorphins and stuff, right? Like, I'll go eat a good steak. I'll get some lobster. But if I don't want to spend a lot of money, I just have some ice cream, right? And I was, originally I was going to say exercise, but I do that every day anyways. So it's not like I'm down every day. But yeah, ice cream is one of them. By the way, what's your favorite ice cream flavor? For me, it's Jamocha Almond Fudge. Like, that is my favorite. It used to be Rocky Road. Before that, it used to be just chocolate. But now mine is Jamocha Almond Fudge because it has that coffee flavor. Yeah, I know. It's got the coffee flavor in it, right? But if I'm eating gelato, I'm definitely going for the pistachio, right? Pistachio is my favorite gelato, and sometimes a dark chocolate or maybe a Ferrero Rocher. I'll eat something like that. And the reason I'm saying this is I just had it 2 days ago with my mom at the mall. Yeah, we went to the mall, we went shopping here and there. I bought her a jacket, and then she's like, hey, want to get some ice cream? I was like, hey, let's go get some ice cream. And so we ordered it. And it's not because I was down though. It's not because I was down. It's because my mom wanted it. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to have one with my mom anyway. So I don't know. What's your favorite flavor when it comes to ice cream and gelato? That'd be kind of a cool one to kind of to see in the comment section below. If someone could just write a thread and put like at the top favorite ice cream, and then everyone can reply to it and put your favorite ice cream in. Mine, hands down, Jamocha Almond Fudge. That is my favorite. I want to see what you guys are thinking about that too. So, there's a lot of things going on at this time. We know the situation in Providence, Sunsteam's trial, all these other different things going on with KJS, right? And, I kind of start to realize now why Sunsteam said that we should just focus on our missions and making ourselves, right? And one of the big things is it's very, very easy. There's just too much out there, too much information, whether it's rumors, gossip, the trial, and there's so many articles coming out, you can really get caught up in it. And then you kind of lose out on what we could be doing for ourselves and for this history, right? Because, I've heard some people say to me like, well, I'm not going to do anything until I know for sure, right? And I think that's kind of a trap, though. I think you're kind of trapping yourself if you are going to just paralyze yourself and not do anything until you know. And I think it's going to actually stunt your growth as a person. So let's just say that because of this, you stop everything completely, all your missions and everything else. Then what are you going to do? Kind of just hang around, wait for more info to come out, and just kind of sit there stunted in your growth? But, we're in a place right now there's not enough information. We're in a place where we won't know the full info probably until like next year. Maybe not until the year after to know all the different things that came out, what is true, what is false, right? And, like I said before, is remember that we're all in a situation where nothing has changed for us in this history. Now, what does that mean? It means that we're minding our own business, doing the things that, we're supposed to be doing. We believe in this history. And I'm going to tell you this, like, even for myself, I have not seen anything wrong. I've been here 25 years. I have not seen anything like this happen. Zero. I have not even a hint of it, right? And whenever there's something really bad like these things happening, it's usually between members or a member and someone outside, right? And for me, it's like, I've never seen anything wrong. I've never seen it happen. That's just what that's my experience here, right? And the things that people are saying is like, oh, it's so bad. I'm like, wouldn't some of this stuff come out by this time after 45 years? And it's people on the outside who are accusing us, saying things about us. So our job is to let the people with the missions deal with it, and we do what we need to do, right? Like, life doesn't stop because someone is saying bad things about us or about Providence or whatever it is. Life doesn't change because someone thinks there is something wrong with us or have problems with us, right? Let me give you an example about how life goes on. Like, let's take a look at this. Imagine you have a job, and then your CEO is accused of something similar to what's happening right now. Would you all of a sudden quit your job that's paying you money so that you can live? And the answer is, you wouldn't quit your job. You'd be like, oh, let's just see what happens. Would you continue with your job and keep getting your paychecks? Or would you even say to your manager, well, I'm not going to do anything anymore until I find out what the truth is? Now, like in our situation, like if I look at myself, my personal situation, I've been here 25 years in this history. This organization is a place that I have greatly benefited from. And I have not seen anything bad happen in the past 25 years or anything that hints about it, right? So imagine this. Imagine you're in the same situation with that organization, or it's your job that you have a similar situation. Would you just stop and quit? Or would you just say, hey, manager, I'm not going to do anything else until I find out what the truth is? Reality is, your life goes on. You got to pay your bills. You got to do those things. You're benefiting from that company that has done nothing wrong to you, right? And since you're benefiting, you'll keep doing your job. You're not going to quit that job because, to find another, that's going to be kind of hard, right? In the same way, too, when I look at myself in this history, yeah, people are going to say those things. I've already made up my mind from before that I love this history. This is the history of God. This is what I know. I haven't seen anything bad. I haven't seen anything wrong. And even now, when I have some friends in the world that know I'm in Providence, very open to each other. And when they say, hey, these things are happening, I tell them straight up, I'm like, hey, bro, I've never seen anything like this, ever. And he's like, oh, so you don't know? I was like, no, I've never seen it. I've never seen it. I've only seen good things. And these people will even vouch for my character and say, yeah, like you're someone who's quality character. I've never seen anything bad from you. You don't say bad, you don't do bad things. You don't even cuss kind of thing, right? And they'll even vouch for my character. And they're like, yeah, we understand you. We trust you too. It's like, yeah, I just haven't seen it. So let's just wait to see what happens, right? And that's when I'm talking to them. And I continue with what I'm doing. I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to quit just because difficulties come, right? Life doesn't stop. History doesn't stop. Life goes on, right? And, these situations are going to happen, and our reaction to it has to be proper, right? Like if you were to look at a real world situation. But sometimes it does feel like we look at Providence as like a non-real world situation, and we treat it differently than we do with any other organization, right? If you're in a job for 25 years that's treated you well, that you've benefited from, you've become a better person because of it, you've been benefiting from it, and then all of a sudden in that job, someone says something bad about the CEO, and you'd be like, yeah, you're going to quit? You're going to quit? Are you going to stop your job and say, oh, I'm not going to do anything until I find out? And the answer is no, you wouldn't. Life goes on, right? And you're going to wait to see what happens. And, if it's, you look at it and say, yeah, well, I've never seen this before, and let's just let it play out. But I got to continue to do my job, right? And that's something that I think all of us have to think about is life is going to move on. These things are going to pass, right? And what we need to do is, yeah, we're not going to, the trial's going to go through all these different things are going to happen. And it's not for us, it's going to be more detrimental for us to stop doing it, to stop growing. to stop making myself, to stop listening to the word. Like, listen to the words even for this week. It's great. Last week's word was awesome. The week before, amazing. So we're listening to these words that are only benefiting us. We're drawing closer to God, and we've only gained from it. And because this is going on doesn't mean we stop. We got to push forward, right? We got to push forward. And we got to know that, we only know what we know. And we know, and we've received the inspiration of the Holy Spirit about this history. And we have to understand is, these things are going to pop up in life. But even in life, if you get sick, but you have to raise your 3 kids or whatever it is, you're going to stop working and you can't provide for your family? No, right? You got to keep going. Life goes on, right? You're sick. Does that mean you don't take care of your baby? Absolutely not. You still got to take care of your baby, right? Life goes on, and leave the mission. The stuff about finding out about all the things that are going on, most of us don't need to go through it. We don't. It's unnecessary. We don't need to spend all this time trying to figure out what happened here, what happened there, right? And even for me, the reason why I go into this is so that you don't. This is my mission, right? This is my mission on this podcast, to kind of keep you guys updated what's going on, what we can pray for. And I'll do my best. Sometimes I'll miss something. Sometimes, I might oversay something. I have to apologize for it too. But I find this as my mission on this podcast, right? So that you guys don't have to go through the mess of trying to figure out what is right, what is wrong. And I try to figure out only the things that are really confirmed, right? So life goes on. Life goes on. Keep making yourself, keep building yourself, keep praying, keep listening to the word. There's nothing, all the stuff that we've received over the last decades, how much of it was bad or wrong? And the answer is no, there's not. I can't even think about. The only thing that I find that we need to change is organizational structure and the culture that kind of we made. And that's something that I want to do so that we can improve the place that we're living in to make it better and better, right? But I've never had a complaint about Sunsteam, never had a complaint about anyone, about the way, like Providence itself as the history of God. No, I don't have it. That's my personal opinion. And I hope it's something that you guys can look back at your experience too. Yes, we'll have problems with people. Yes, there's going to be problems with, like, say, church structure, organization, or sometimes leaders are not that good, right? I'll look back at I'm going to be very honest with you guys too. I look back at myself as a head leader, and I already can point out like probably 8 different things. I'm like, man, I wish I didn't do it like that. I wish I didn't do it like that, kind of thing, right? But I hope it's something that all of us, let's learn and grow. Make ourselves, don't stop. Don't just sit there trying to find out all the answers, because you're not going to get all the answers. All we're getting is pieces and pieces as time goes by, right? And I'll tell you guys, as my mission here on this podcast, I'll do my best to give you as much as I can, all right? So I hope that all of us can push forward and make sure that this history grows more and more. All right, so I had this interesting conversation with a friend too, and this member was talking about they have a bad reputation in their region. Like, they have a bad reputation, and it's not from Providence people, from worldly people, right? And they admitted that it's because of their own fault. They're a little bit too focused or a little bit extreme in the actions that they take, and then they're starting to have a bad reputation. And so they're asking me, like, well, how do you restore your reputation? And that's a really good question. Like, how do I restore my reputation, right? And this person's reputation kind of got really bad to the point they don't even want to leave their house because people start talking about them and stuff. So, one of the things I've learned about the restoration of your reputation, when you have a bad reputation, it's because you might have done something to the point where it's so bad where only people remember that, or you've done it multiple times so that a lot of people are irked by that experience, and then all of a sudden you've built a reputation, right? It's usually something like a habitual thing or something you've done over and over again, or the feeling is very, very strong where everyone thinks you're that type of person. So how do you change it? Well, the best way to change it is you actually, if it's you cannot defend yourself. It's kind of like when Jesus is like, I can't witness to myself. Right? I can't witness to myself of who I am. So you need a witness there, right? And when you have a witness, this is where your reputation begins to change. When someone starts to defend you, like, no, they're not like that. They're never like that to me, kind of thing, right? So how do you change a bad reputation? Well, number one is, first, in that area, you need to find someone you trust, right? Someone, that you might be closer to. And you have to talk to them privately and tell them, hey, I know I have this bad reputation, but I want to change and I want to do better. Can you please help me out, right? And, usually if it's someone close to you, they really want to help you out. Like, okay, I'll help you out as much as I can. Please call me out when I don't do something, or I do something that's kind of like my bad reputation. And a lot of people get to this point where they're trying to get people to help you out. And this is where people have to go the extra step to change your bad reputation. So what happens is, let's just say you're someone that always gets angry. Like, you're known to be very angry all the time, right? You get angry really, really quickly. So imagine there's, and people are going to remember this because it's a reputation. They're going to remember, oh, they're always angry. They're always angry. So what has to happen is, when you are trying your best and you have that person by your side who's trying to help you out with it, if it happens, right? So something's about to happen again and you're about to get angry, and then that person's like, hey, bro, hey, you got to calm down here. It's like, oh, that's so true. All right. And then you calm down and you don't get mad at this person. So what happens here is, you've now done something that's contradicting to your reputation, which means that you're doing something good now where everyone thinks you're a bad person. Now, when you do that, the problem is people are not going to remember that good thing. Because of a reputation, anything negative overtakes it, right? So it's kind of like a confirmation bias where everyone thinks you're that type of person. And even when you have every right to be angry, they'll look at that and say, see, they're that type of person. That's their reputation. So in order for people to recognize that you're not that type of person or you're changing, is don't just wait 5 months later and say that, hey, so how have I done? People are not going to remember all the things you've done over the last 5 months. They're not going to remember anything. Right? They're going to go back to your reputation and say, well, you did get mad that one time there, and you did get mad this one time here, right, over the last 5 months. So you haven't changed your reputation. So what you do is, you have to be able to point out the things you did well over like a 2-week period. So after 2 weeks, you sit down with your friend and say, hey, this is what, I know that I have this reputation. But do you remember that time you calmed me down? I didn't do anything. So I did well there. They're like, oh yeah, you did well there too. So what you're doing is, because a reputation makes people only think of the things that are bad, you need to remind them of you doing it well. Right? Where it's like, oh yeah, so I did well there. Like, oh yeah, you did really well there, and you didn't get mad. Wow, that's really good, right? And you really helped us out, right? And then the next 2 weeks later, something else might happen too, and you remind your friend of the things that you did well. So what is happening here is, that person that you trusted is starting to recognize and realize, oh, this person did this well. Oh yeah, usually you get mad here, but you didn't get mad here. Oh, you usually don't help people out, but you help someone out here. Oh, you're helping out. And every 2 weeks, you're kind of sitting down with that person and asking, how did you do? What'd you think about that time that I did this? What'd you think about that time? And if you keep reminding this person of the good things, what happens is, the next time you do something bad, someone's going to say, oh, this person's terrible. They're always like this. That person who was there, the one that you're working with together, the one that you trust, is going to be the one that says, well, actually, this person actually helped you guys out here, and they helped you guys out there, and this person didn't get mad here and didn't get mad there. So I actually think he's doing a great job to change the way he is, right? So you got to remember that when you have a reputation, the reputation is the thing that precedes everything else, because they're only seeing you as that type of person because you have that type of reputation, right? And because of that, if you wait too long or you don't remind people of the things that you're actually changing and doing better, they're only going to be thinking about those bad things, and that reputation is going to stick with you. You need to have that one person you trust, and every 2 weeks, remind them, ask them how you're doing, and they're going to say, oh yeah. And as you keep reminding them of these things, and you've done well for a month, you've done well for 2 months. Then in the 3rd month, when something goes wrong, yeah, people might say something, but that person will be like, actually, it's this and this and this. But if you wait for like 3, 4, 5 months, and then you do something bad, they're only going to think about that reputation. And if you want to change your reputation, you have to do it in a very systematic way. How systematic is it? It's the same systematic way people do to make your reputation, if you have a bad reputation. Because let's just say you're someone who's always late. You're late here, right? They're okay with it. Then you're late again. They're like, whoa, why is this person late? Then you're late again. And then now that you've done it over and over and over, someone's going to say to you, man, he wasn't just late yesterday. He was late 3 days ago. He was late last week too, which means they're all remembering the times that you were late, right? So these people are talking about it and your reputation begins to grow because they're constantly reminded of all the times you did that bad thing. However, on the flip side, you have to, to change your reputation is not easy. You have to do the exact same system to help remind people of the good things that you're doing or how much you're changing. Right? And this is how reputation actually changes. But you need someone to, it can't be you saying it, I did this and I did that. You have to have someone who is supporting you, someone who is vouching for you. And this is when your reputation begins to change a lot more. Right? So I found that, I was learning that through a leadership course. And I thought that was very, very important so all of us can learn about this also too. Either way. So today is Question and Answer Thursday. 2 big questions coming up. We'll go over it after this first break, right? So let's have a break and then we'll get into Question and Answer Thursday.
A slave until I came and set you free, took away your pain and suffering, and I parted your Red Sea. You said thank you, hallelujah, this is heaven here on earth. I will live my life rejoicing, giving glory forever. As time went on, your heart changed. Your joy is gone. That's why I say, don't forget the love you had at first, the stories of the past, the promises you made. You received in my domain of grace and love. Don't forget, though you're weaker and outnumbered, I give you the upper hand. Took you from a barren desert to your fertile promised land. You said thank you, hallelujah, you delivered me again. So I'll give my life to you and I will follow till the end. As time went on, your heart changed. Your joy is gone. That's why I say, of the past, the promises you made, my love. Don't forget the value of this time, the blessings you received in my domain of grace and love. Don't forget. Cherish it, value it before it's too late. And everything you received gets taken away. Then you'll see that 1,000 years blessings you made, my love. Don't forget the value of this time, the blessings you received in my domain of grace and love. Don't forget, because 1,000 years out there, it's nothing like just one day with me.
So there it is. That's our first musical break. Hope you guys really enjoyed that. I was like just editing this at the moment, and my mom was like, "Hey, what do you want to eat for lunch?" And I'm like, she's like, "You got two options." And she's like, "You can have like Korean food at home, or we can go out for sushi." And I was like, "Oh, this is such a good life." Being at home, my mom was like, "I can make you this, some bulgogi, and we can have some wrap like this, or we can go out for sushi together." I'm like, I'm okay. I personally, I would rather eat at home. My mom's cooking is always the best cooking, but it's just so good to be at home, and it makes. I don't know what it is. I know what it is. It's just, I think, no, it's not I think. I know it's the most important thing. Like more and more that we go through life, we realize the most important thing is love. Like it really is. Like there's nothing more important than love. That if you had a choice of multiple different things, the most important thing that you'd want is love. Right? And I was like, yeah, I'd rather have home cooking. But I also told my mom, I was like, "Mom, if you don't want to cook, I'm fine. We can just go out for sushi or whatever it is." But she's like, no, I'll prepare that for you. So I think she's really being nice to me because I bought her a jacket yesterday. Excuse me. So I'm thinking that could be it. Either way, let's get into Q&A Thursday. All right. So two big questions here. The first question is about... This person asked from my DMs, in this chaotic situation, it seems that many people are becoming stronger in faith, and this makes sense to me. But what I find interesting is that people who were normally not strong in faith or not even coming to church are now coming out and are becoming stronger in their faith too. So the question is like, isn't it more normal for these people to be weaker by the situation and not stronger, right? And I think that's a really good question because it's true. There's a lot of people that come out of the woodworks that may not have been strong in their faith before, but because of this situation, they become stronger about it, right? And, I was thinking about that like, wow, what is the psychology behind this, right? So, like one of the things I do talk about in the past is like the psychology that Sunsteam talks about is in the Tower of Babel, right? The Tower of Babel is a reaction to Noah's flood, right? The flood came and killed so many people and the waters rose so high that the people came together and said, "Oh, what a huge disaster of Noah's flood." And because of that disaster, it brought people together because it's a very extreme negative situation and they want to make it positive and they begin to come together and they're unified building this tower, right? And, it's kind of the same thing in this world too. In this world, when there's natural disasters and earthquakes and people are dying, people band together regardless of how they feel about each other personally, but they come together and say, "Oh, let's do this together because this is bigger than us," right? This cause of helping people who are dying or trapped in rubble because of an earthquake is bigger than our problems or differences, right? And in the same way, it becomes the same when it's something extremely good. Right? When you look at like the World Cup, everyone bands together in their country and they'll celebrate. And when they score a goal, they'll hug. And when they win the World Cup, like we saw in Argentina this year, was it this year or last year? I think it was this year, right? It was last year. When Argentina won, what happened? Well, when Argentina won, they had a big parade and something like 400,000 people came out to celebrate, right? And the key factor in this is there a cause that's bigger? Is there a cause that's bigger than the issues that we're having with each other, right? And it kind of makes me think about this. When this situation didn't come up and church is just normal, right? It's normal. There's no extreme tribulation or anything else. The people who are strong will be strong in church, which is like, a small group of them. And there's a large group that's kind of in the middle, that's kind of just in what you call the gray area. They're not super fervent. They're not like bad or anything else, but they're just kind of in the gray area, right? And then of course you're going to have that small select group that needs to be managed and whatever it is, right? So that's kind of what the normal times look like. But when you look at the extreme time we're looking at right now, there's basically only two sides, right? And they are both really extreme. Right? It's basically you pick a side, or you have to pick a side. Whatever side you pick, there's going to be difficulties on either side. And, when you look at a lot of these people who are coming out of the woodwork, most of them are not in a position where they're ready to leave. They don't have enough to say that this is wrong, right? And they need to pick a side because now it comes down to whether it's good or bad or right or wrong, whatever it is, right? And what's going to happen is they'll come out and they'll have to pick a side, and it's going to be extreme. And when I talk about, when Cecily talks about people need a cause, right? So usually extreme situations like an earthquake, natural disaster, bad things happening, it causes people it makes people have a cause, like they're fighting for something. We've got to save these people. We got to win the World Cup. We got to do this, and it's bigger than myself. Then that extreme situation makes a cause, and that cause allows you to go out and do something about it, right? But when it's normal times, there's a gray area. There's a gray area where, the cause itself is not strong enough. Like, it's not extreme enough. So a lot of people will be in the middle, and they'll be satisfied and happy being in the middle, right? And right now, we're in a very extreme time. And a lot of people, most of them are not ready to leave. They don't have enough to say, I'm going to leave this history. And this is why they'll come in and become very, very strong about this. If you think about this generation we're living in right now, the generation we live in today, people, especially the young generation, they're looking for a cause to support. They're looking for it. Something that gives their life vision and meaning. That's why you're going to see a lot of climate change activists, immigration activists, racism activists, sexism activists. Like, they're all out there, and they're all, trying to find a cause that's going to give meaning to their life. People need a cause to fight for. But if it's not clear what we're trying to do, what the cause actually is, then people won't invest a lot into it. Right? So if you look at these causes like climate change or racism or what all these other different things that are happening, no one's asking them to do much. Like, no one's asking them to spend money, but they'll spend money to buy a plane ticket to go to a protest. And it's on their own time and their own money. No one's asking them to do anything, but they'll take their own efforts and put it in, right? People need a cause to fight for. And one of the problems that we might have, especially in this history, is that when times are normal, you don't feel that cause anymore. And that's why people kind of move into the gray area. It's like, I don't really need to do this. Yeah, like, what's the cause? But it's only when these extreme times come up, you see the cause itself. And you're like, okay, I'm here for this history. I have a reason to be here. I'm an important part of this, right? And on the flip side too, the people on the other side who are accusing, they're going to look at it as a cause. What's the cause? I have to save my friends. I have to save those people that I grew up with. Oh, I can't believe this is happening. I'm going to save them, right? And people are trying to find a cause, and that's why they'll take the actions they take, and it becomes very, very extreme. So we kind of look at human psychology. The big thing people are looking for is a cause to fight for that makes it worthwhile that they're living in this history, right? And with this extreme situation, it causes people to come out of the woodwork, and there's going to be select few that are going to leave, and they're going to be against it, and there's going to be probably the majority of people are going to be like, oh, this is why I got to fight for this. This is what I'm fighting for, kind of thing, right? And this is why you're going to see people come out of the woodwork, and a lot of them are going to start to have great faith again, right? Working together, becoming one, united. And I hope it's something that all of us too, this is something, it's a great time for us to unite. It's a great time for us to work together on this cause, right? This history of God. And, this is, as interesting as this is, people are going to, there's some people that are going to leave. And many people have. Right? Many not meaning the majority, many not even meaning half. Like, some people will leave. That's just what's going to happen. But there are going to be a lot of people that come out and it's going to surprise you because they're like, this is what I've been waiting for. I've wanted a cause, a reason why I'm here. And that's something that we have to think about also and say, yeah, like sometimes we're just not doing a good job in the normal times to give people that cause, right? So, I hope that we'll really, really get ourselves to understand at that level, like, hey, this is a time where people have to come together, but it also is a life lesson when you think about when this dies down, like say next year or the year after, when everything is completely settled. We can't get back into that normal mode where people have lost the cause. Like they forgot the reason why we're here, right? Because, the thing that's going to be kind of sad is, are we going to be waiting for an extremely bad situation to happen for us to come together? Like the Tower of Babel because of the flood? That flood's going to make us come together and make this large tower and we're all united as one. But are we going to keep waiting for these serious bad moments for us to come together and be united? And that's something that we have to realize is, yeah, it's going to happen. If we can't unite in the normal times, then we're always waiting for usually something really bad to happen so that we can come back together. But there's always going to be collateral damage and casualties along the way, especially in those bad extreme times. Right? So I really hope it's something that it becomes a lesson is, how can we get people to understand the cause at all times, right? Not just when the bad times come. And this kind of one of the psychological thoughts I was thinking about when it comes to why are all of a sudden these people who are never really coming to church or not very good in faith, all of a sudden during this time they become strong. And it's very, very much psychological. And we see it a lot of times, during very big disasters or very huge celebrations, right? And I hope that we can learn from this too for the future when all this settles down also. Second question comes from my Instagram DM. And it's about times, and half a times. And there are people out there saying that, people who are accusing on the other side saying that, well, Sunseem, it was never Sunseem that interpreted or someone else interpreted before him. And this is a rumor that they tried to bring around a long time ago, which we also know it was false anyways, right? And, sometimes you'll hear something from the former faith or something along that line about times, and half a times. And it is an interesting question to bring up, but you have to look at the totality of the lesson of times, and half a times and how much it really, really, everything fits, not just at that lesson as itself, but as history in general. And that's why I'm telling you guys got to listen to that history lesson. That history lesson is such a powerful lesson that we have to understand the power of the repeating history, right? So, one thing I want people to look into again is, is it really false? Well, think about that very, very first unlocking of times, and half a times, which is Israel 1948, which is 688 plus 1260, which equals 1948. And that's when Israel, the physical country of Israel, received their independence, right? Like that is something you're going to look at. You're not going to be like, oh, he's just lucky Sunstein. He just lucked out on that number. No, it's absolute and it's clear. But the next two numbers are the big ones, which is 1978 and 2023. And one of the things is, no matter what anyone says, that, anyone can say, well, I came up with this, or I came up with this, right? The one thing that we have to understand very, very clearly is people can say whatever they want about times, half a times, but who's the one that's actually matching it? That's the question. 1978, who came out at that time? What's Alpha Day? June 1st, 1978. Right? And when we look at this, it's like, oh, that's interesting. But then you have to think about this too, is we look at the total picture of this history of each of the, the last 6,000 years, you see three levels. It is, three sets or 3 times 2,000. And in those 2,000 years, it's Adam to Noah, which is 1,600 years, Noah to Abraham, 400 years. That's the first 2,000 years. Second 2,000 years is Abraham to Malachi, 1,600 years. Malachi to Jesus, 400 years. There it is once again. And then you look at the last 2,000 years we lived in, you have Jesus to Luther, right? And Luther, when did he die? It was like 1646. Was it 1646? 1546, sorry. Right? It's like 1546. And then 400 years later, 1945 is when Sunsi was born, right? So we're looking at the exact same thing that's happening over and over and over. It's not so much like people can argue all they want of, I came up with it first, but the bigger issue is who's matching the time. You can't like copy that. And then when we look at even the central figure path of 21, 3.5, and 21, remember 1999 was the start of the grave period, and guess what happened? Exactly in January 1999 is when the persecution started against Sunsi. 1999, exactly at that time, right? So we're looking at all these things, we're like, wait a second. Regardless of what you're saying is like, well, maybe Sunsi, he's matching all the times. And you know what's even scarier? What's even scarier is when Sunsim tells us, like, do you know why it's 1978 in June in the middle of the year? And we're like, well, why is it in the middle? Why didn't it start in January, right? Because remember, the central figure path is 21, 3.5, and 21. Crazier part is, remember, his path coincides with the John the Baptist of this time period. And we know that the John the Baptist of this time period, failed like John the Baptist did. But the time period, the time matches with Sunstein, right? So we know that the John the Baptist Church was supposed to be the Unification Church with Reverend Moon. And what happened is, when did the Unification Church officially start? Well, they started the Holy Spirit Association, the HSA, and that began on May 1st in 1954. So there's the beginning of the mission. So you count 21 years. 1954, 21 years goes to 1975, which is the grave period. And then you have 3.5 years. So 1975 was the grave period for Reverend Moon. And what's 3.5 years after that? 3.5 years is, 3 plus 1975 is 1978, and then you have half a year, that's why it's 1978 in June, 3.5 years, and that's supposed to start the John the Baptist resurrection period, right? Well, how much greater is that resurrection period is if at that time he's starting together with the man of mission, right? And that's why his path, Sunsi's path of him coming in 1978 is exactly coinciding with the central figure path of the John the Baptist, like to the T. And when you look at this, you're like, whoa, what the heck is going on? And that's why we have to understand this really, really well, is the timing is impeccable. 1948, Israel's independence, which is 688, we learned of the Dome of the Rock, plus 1260, which is the times and half a times. We learned this entire lesson. And then it's the 1290 and the 1335. And we see those numbers come up, and we see them coming up to it. They're coming out exactly as it is. People can say whatever they want, but it's about who is the one that's actually matching the time, right? Now, someone's going to say to me like, well, Pastor Sky, there's that rumor that Sunsi came from the Unification Church and took their teachings from it. And the answer is, it's kind of like he didn't come from them. He learned it from Jesus, right? While he's in the mountains. And why did he all of a sudden start attending the Unification Church? I'm not sure if it was in the late 60s or early 70s. I'm not sure which one it was, right? But why would he be going to the Unification Church? Well, we all, Sunsi's talked about this a long time ago. And I've heard about this story even from the very beginning. So why did Sunsi purposely go into the church? Right? Well, remember, it has to do with missions. If the John the Baptist, the Elijah of the time period, is Reverend Moon, he's the one that's supposed to be that physical witness that's supposed to protect him, and they're supposed to come out together, just like John the Baptist and Jesus were supposed to come out together, right? But how did he find him? Right? How did he find him? They're supposed to come out together in 1978, and then the mission starts, and he already has a cloud of witnesses to work on from there. And we know that from the John the Baptist lecture. But how did Sunsi get into that church? Well, here it is. So what Sunsi talked about this way long time ago too. This is not old news. This is old news. So what happened was In the 1960s and 70s, that was a time of a huge revival in the world. So even at that time, preachers like Reverend Billy Graham were speaking in Korean stuff too, right? So how did Sunsim actually find Reverend Moon to see if he was a John the Baptist at the time? Well, in Korea, there's supposed to be like many great speakers and revival speakers in Korea that were preaching up a storm, right? And I think there was either 7 or 8 of them. And what Sunsim started to do is he started to go to these revivals. He started to go to these preachers, these big names, and start listening to them and recording them and listening to them over and over and over again. Now, when he went to listen to them, what's he listening for? Well, he's trying to find the John the Baptist, which means that he's trying to find the person that preaches the same as him, right? Because remember, in the New Testament, we'll see in Matthew chapter 3, John the Baptist comes out and says, repent for the kingdom of heaven is near. And then once John the Baptist was put in prison, in Matthew chapter 4, verse, is it 4:17? Is it 4:17? Let me just do a double check here. But in the very next chapter, and I know it's Matthew chapter 4, and I do believe it's 17, when John the Baptist was in jail, it says that from that time on, Jesus began to preach the exact same thing as John the Baptist, which means they had a similar message. Why? Because they're people whose missions are tied together. So he'd go to these revival speakers, and he'd go to these other pastors, listen to them, and he's listening for who taught that the fire is the word, who taught the clouds were people, right? So he's listening to these preachers, and he's hearing people say, and Jesus will come and he judge with fire. The fire will burn people physically. But only when he finally listened to Reverend Moon, he listens and he hears, oh, fire is the word. Oh, clouds are people. And he's like, that's it. He's the one. He's the one preaching the very same message, right? But since Reverend Moon is such a big person by this time, remember, he was like preaching. He already had so many followers, and he became very, very famous too, even in America. And he preached to the Senate, right, to Congress in America too. And that video is even on the internet. You'll see Reverend Moon preaching to Congress about God, right? But what happens is you can't just meet someone that big, right? So what happened was he went into the church, right? And he moved up the ranks so that he'll have his chance to meet with Reverend Moon. And from there, they'll know who each other are, and then they can move forward, right? And Sunsim even testified once that, like, even during one of Reverend Moon's sermons, when Sunsim was listening, Reverend Moon is like, I am not the one, but someone here is, right? And he's like, okay. And when Sunsim eventually met Pastor Moon, with the goal in mind to find the John the Baptist in the time period so that they can start working together. The problem happened is Sunsim realized that, John the Baptist went astray once again. And that's why he had to go on his own in 1978. That's why it was a really difficult time where it took him 2 years and 10 months to find the first person. But can you imagine how different it would have been if the John the Baptist, the Unification Church, did well? He would already have a cloud of followers. It would have been that much more quicker and better, right? So technically speaking, when you say that he came from the Unification Church, he personally went in himself, but we know the reason why when it comes to finding the John the Baptist of the time period. And sadly, he didn't do what he's supposed to do, right? But when you look at this entire situation, when you look at time times, half of times, people, can we 100% prove, like 100% that Sunsim was the one that received it? And the answer is we can't. We weren't there. And then someone else can say, well, I got it first. How can you prove or disprove? And the answer is you can't. It's hard to 100% disprove or approve what people are saying. But the one thing that is absolute and for certain is these numbers are there, and he is the only one that matches it. 1978, 1999, the persecution comes from the grave period. It's all about Sunsim, right? And that's one of the reasons why, when it comes to, I realized this first. Like I said, technically speaking, we can't figure that out. But what we do know is that there's only one person that matches the timeline, right? That, think about how crazy it is. Exactly 1978, exactly 1999, tribulation comes. Exactly 2023. And, who's blessed? Like as Daniel said in Daniel chapter 12, only those who make it till the end of 2023 will be blessed. We know it's not going to be an easy time, right? So, yeah, accusers can say what they want. They can't prove that someone got it before Sunsim. And honestly, we can't even sit there and say that we were there when Sunsim received it. We just know that he's been preaching it since 1978. That's all we can say, right? And someone could say, well, I've been preaching it since 1975. And the answer is, well, maybe they were. Maybe, right? It's possible. But the difference is we're looking at who is the one. So even if someone received that times, and half the times, shouldn't they also, if they know the numbers, look for someone that comes out at that time? Look for 1999 and who's being persecuted at that time. Like, they should know better then, right? They should be, also eventually coming to something like, oh, okay, so I realized this before you, but now I realize it's you, right? Was there some, like, put it this way, was there anyone who, like, just kind of going biblically, was there anyone who realized about Jesus even before John the Baptist? And the answer is absolutely, right? There was like Simeon and Anna the prophetess who were both told that they would meet the Christ before they died, right? That's even before John the Baptist. So even then we see that, yeah, it's possible these things will happen, but it all points back to the one that God sends and the one that's fitting the time. Just because you realized it first doesn't mean you're the one. You can realize it and then understand as well who fits the time. And that's the most important part. It's who fits that time. And that's something that we really have to think about also, right? So when it comes to times, and half of times, yeah, there's a lot of things people are going to say. And I've heard the whole lot of what people were saying about this and that, or maybe this person realized it, whatever it is. But you look at the numbers, 1948 with Israel's independence. And then obviously using the same interpretations, you use 1978, 2023, the centrifugal path, matching with the John the Baptist of the time too. It's incredible. Like the chance of this coming from the Bible and seeing that, like the odds are like, they're astronomical. How big it is to be born at the right time. 400 years after Martin Luther dies. It's astronomical, right? You'd have to be born at the right time, so 1945, 1946. Then you'd have to come out at the right time, 1978. And then you have to have persecution come at you at 1999. That's astronomically impossible. And that's why we have to realize, yeah, let people say what they want. But when you look at the numbers, when you look at all the things biblically too, it's incredible, astronomical. It's not something that you could just say it's a fluke or coincidence. You can't even force that. Can you force the 1999 broadcast to come out in 1999? And the answer is no way. Even if someone tried to force the 1978 and say, all right, I'm going to come out with my mission 1978. Even if you try to force that, who can force a 1999 where you have broadcast stations coming against you in 1999? You can't force that. You can't. Right? So that's one of the things that you look at and say, oh, okay. So that's why when I talk to people about times, half times, yeah, it's astronomically, you can't have coincidences. That's like virtually impossible. It's harder to win. It's easier to win the lottery than to do these things over the last 45 years. So that's kind of my take on this too. Either way. So there it is, guys. That is Q&A Thursday. I hope you guys enjoyed those two questions. We will have Sermons in the Sky next. And the title is No One Knows What They're Missing. No one knows what they're missing. So that will be after this second break.
Can't understand the reason why they laugh and smile. They say they do not need the Lord to be satisfied. Without the Lord, I cannot breathe at all. Without the Lord, I cannot live at all. keeps chasing joy and happiness they think will last, but they disregard the Lord and His eternal love. Yet as for me, I only want His love. I only want to be the Lord's love. Without Him, I can't live on. I cannot live all alone. All that I breathe is for Him now. He's the center of my life. Though the whole world may change, still my heart will never change. Lord, without You, I cannot live on. Lord, without You, I cannot live on. You've become the reason that I live. Lord, I love You, please stay by my side forevermore. The Lord lives in my heart, and heaven lives within my soul. When I'm with the Lord, I feel like heaven's on the earth. Now because of Him, I have found eternal joy. I am blessed to know this eternal happiness. As the Lord's body, I know I can do anything. As a bride, I preach according to the will of God. So please, my Lord, grant me power, grant me strength. And please, my love, be with me until the end. Without Him, I can't live on. I cannot live all alone. All that I breathe is for Him now. He's the center of my life. If the whole world may change, still my heart will never change. Lord, without You, I cannot live on. Without Him, I can't live on. I cannot live all alone. All that I breathe is for Him now. He's the center of my life. Though the whole world may change, still my heart will never change. Lord, without You, I cannot live
And what a wonderful song. I hope you guys really enjoyed that. So let's get into our last section for today, which is Sermons in the Sky. And I kind of titled this one, You Don't Know What You're Missing. Right? You don't know what you're missing. And I was thinking about this because of the Thursday proverb number 6. It says, in the spiritual world, those who are made gather among other spirits who are made and listen to the word that pertains to that level. Those who are not made gather among those who are not made and receive education and listen to the word that pertains to their level. And when I was thinking about this, like, yeah, everyone goes to their level. Some are higher, some are lower. And it all depends on how much they've made themselves, how much they've how much they've put effort into making themselves better through the words of God, right? And when you're at that level in the spiritual world, you're going to be listening to the words that are higher and lower depending on what you've done here on this earth. And it makes me think about like school too. Like one of the things is we all go to class. Let's say that you're going into physics, right? And physics, you have a freshman in physics, then you have someone who's graduated, someone who's got a master's, and someone who has a PhD. And if you're a freshman going into a PhD physics class, you're going to have a hard time. You're not going to understand anything, and you're going to struggle. And even if you went to a higher level, you would struggle because you have no idea what is going on. You can't understand anything. And of course, people always want the higher level things. But when you're actually there, you kind of don't want to be there anymore. You kind of feel embarrassed being there because it's too high for you and everyone else understands what's going on except you. And this reminds me of when Sunseem talked about the rapture itself. Because, when we're going to rapture, there's so many different levels. And when the time of the rapture comes, everyone goes to their level. So like the heaven opens up and then each time period goes into their areas. The servants will go to the outer, the sons on the inner, and the brides are in the core. And then in the core of the core is the golden city, right? And then, of course, in each area also, there are levels higher than others. And I always wonder to myself is, man, but wouldn't there be jealousy and envy? Because there's always people with more than you, better than you, realize more than you. But the one thing Sunseem said was, he said that people are happiest in the level they are at. Because it's uncomfortable being in areas that are too high or too low for you. For instance, if you're poor but you go to a rich restaurant, even if a rich person invites you, it's uncomfortable. You look at the prices. You want to order the cheapest thing on the menu. Everyone's got Ferraris and everyone's got nice clothes. You just want to get out of there because it's not your level. And even if you're middle class, but you go to a super poor restaurant, it's so dirty and you're like, oh, I don't want to be here anymore. People are comfortable in their level. You like where you belong. And the people who are with you, you like them to be at your level. That's why we don't hang around. If you're not rich, you're not going to hang around with someone who has Ferraris and Lamborghinis living in a huge house. It's just another level. When you look at your life in this world, what are we thinking? Like I thought to myself is like, wouldn't there be jealousy and envy because we're always looking up to people who have more than us? But when you look at the reasons why we get envious and jealous, it's purely physical. It really is. It's a very physical thing. We always want more in this physical world. We wish we were rich. We wish we were better off. And we have envy and jealousy when we see people who have more than us. Why? It's a physical thing, right? Like the 10th commandment, which is coveting. I covet someone's cars, their houses, their families, their jobs, how much money they make. Or even in spiritual things, we covet people's missions. Why can't I have that mission? Or we covet people, oh, why are they closer to Sunseem than I am? But that's because of our physical nature. Cars and houses and monies is about physical comfort. It's not about spiritual comfort, right? Having a prettier, like, oh, I wish I had, look, oh, I'm so jealous because of their wife, because they're prettier, or they might treat them better, or I'm more comfortable. It's about comfort, right? Even missions and providence or getting a better job, it's about status and power. Why can't I be this? Why can't I be that? But once the body is gone, you don't see those things anymore because we're no longer in the physical realm. And those things don't exist in the spiritual world, right? Because it's not about comfort anymore. It's not about the physical body. Once the physical body's gone, we lose all those types of coveting. And when we're in heaven, we're not sitting there coveting what other people have and what we don't. We're just happy where we are. Because in the end, the greatest currency in heaven is love. That's the currency. We are taught this from our entire lives in Providence. What we're doing right now, the biggest currency we have right now is the love between us and God. Which means that all of us, when we go to heaven, can reach those amazing levels in the spiritual world. The problem we have right now is, in this physical realm with our physical bodies, we don't see what we miss spiritually. Right? Spiritual things are in the future. When you go to the Golden City, or they're unseen. It's a spiritual thing. So being in this physical body, we don't know how amazing and how great it is to gain spiritual levels. And here's something that's very interesting about God. God is not there to gloat or get in your face if you didn't do something right. He doesn't do that. He just lets you be. You go on your way. And the best example I have is Abraham. Remember when Abraham had to sacrifice Isaac, and that was going to be like the big sacrifice where he would become the father of faith and the father, descendants more than the sand on the seashore, whatever it is, right? That's where his blessing was going to happen. But in the very end, when Abraham is about to throw the knife down into his son, God stops him, and then he sees a ram in the thicket, and then he uses the ram instead and says, Yehovah Yireh, God provides, and then he sacrifices the ram instead of his son. And the question I always give people is, if Abraham decided not to sacrifice his son, would the ram still be there? Or would it just vanish? And the answer is, it would still be there. It would still be there. Just the fact that God stopped Abraham from sacrificing his son, which means that God never wanted Isaac to die. It was the condition that needed to be set where Abraham can sacrifice the most valuable thing to him. Isaac was never supposed to die. Was God ever going to kill Isaac? And the answer is no. Which means whichever situation it was, no matter what, he would not be sacrificed. So if Abraham says, no, I can't do this, then his son doesn't get sacrificed. And then when Abraham says, I am going to do it, still is not sacrificed. Regardless of what Abraham did, Isaac wouldn't die. So think about this. When Abraham made up his mind to sacrifice his own son, then God provided him a ram instead. But let's just say that Abraham decided not to. That ram's still going to be there. It just doesn't magically disappear. It's still there. Which means Abraham would have had the same reaction. Oh, thank God. God, I didn't have the guts to kill my own son, but there you are providing a ram instead. Oh, Yehovah Yireh, God provides. And guess what would happen? Life would move on. He wouldn't be the father of faith. He didn't set the condition. He wouldn't get all the blessings, but life would go on, and he'd just live his life the way it was. And he doesn't have any idea what he's missed. What does that mean? Think about it. God isn't someone who sits there gloats and saying, oh, I can't believe you didn't do that. Oh, if you would have done that, you know what I would have given you? Oh, what were you thinking? That's what humans do, right? God didn't do that. Life goes on. God just moves on with history and looks for another. He doesn't say to Abraham, oh man, you screwed up. Oh, you failed. He wouldn't say, oh, but if you sacrificed your own son, man, you would have been the father of faith of all generations. Oh, everyone would have looked up to you as a father of God's history, you idiot. Instead, nothing is said and life goes on. If Abraham didn't do that, he has no idea what he would have missed. He'd just go on with his life. And he'd have no idea what just happened and what he just missed out on. We're in the same position like Abraham. That time is going to come where we have that test, where the blessing either comes or we go a different life direction, just like Abraham. And just like Abraham, guess what? Do you think God's going to tell you, oh, I would have given you $10 billion, but now you messed? No, life goes on. You have no idea what you missed. But the one thing we do understand is Abraham was already given the answers before. Father of nations, descendants as numerous as sands of the seashore, stars in the sky. It's all given to him. If you believe, worship, and follow me, listen to what I say, you're going to get it. But if you don't do it, if you don't pass the test, life goes on. And we have to think to ourselves too is sometimes we hear about these blessings in this history. We hear it through the message and we wonder to ourselves, well, it never happened. It never happened. What about those things we're supposed to be blessed by, but it never happened? Why? Life goes on. Regardless if you pass or fail that test. Regardless if you follow through or not. Regardless if you make it or don't make it through the tribulation. If you make it or don't fight through the adversity, life goes on and you have no idea what you miss. And it's the same thing when it comes to us now, right? Raising our spiritual levels, becoming righteous, becoming great in heaven. We're already told about the blessings from the beginning. But we choose to do it or not. And we have no idea when that big test comes, just like it's the make or break for Abraham's mission. Because we didn't make ourselves, because we didn't put the words into action, it's because we didn't pray. And life just goes on. We thought we'd be great in the kingdom of God. We thought there would be something better, but life just went on because we didn't do anything. We have no idea what we missed. 2023 is right now. We're in the middle of the winds, rainstorms, tribulations, adversity right now. And everything that we have done over the past 45 years have accumulated to this very point in time. The last prophecy in the Bible that needs to be fulfilled. This is the end. And at the end, when it's the strongest and hardest, you either make it or you don't. What you've done for yourself to this point, we will have no idea what we miss. And God's not going to tell us, this is it. There's nothing else after this. God's just saying He's watching us. We get all the words, so we know this is the final prophecy. He's not going to tell us, yet He already did through the words for many, many years and decades. We were told, but the question is, how serious were we with it? How serious were we? And it reminds me of, this morning's proverb of number 5. Do you only attend church but don't work on making yourself? Or only listen to the word but don't repent and still criticize others? You have no idea what you're missing. And as life goes on, you will never know what you miss. And that's why we have to focus on making ourselves through the words of God and understanding that time will come, just like Abraham, where God will ask you to sacrifice the most important thing. And if you pass it, the blessings are for thousands of generations. But if you don't do it, guess what? You don't know what you're missing. We just don't know. And we have to realize this deeply through the words we receive every single week. So I hope that this is something that helps us to really think about what we're going through right now and helps us to realize this is the time we have to realize even more deeply, right, about the situation that we're facing, right? And we need to be those just like Abraham, no matter how big the sacrifice was. We passed the test, and the blessings are incredible and immeasurable. But like I also said, if you don't pass, you won't know. No one's going to say that you failed or whatever. You just don't know what you missed. Either way. So there it is, guys. That is today's Sermons in the Sky. I hope it's something that you guys makes you guys think deeply about our situation and what we're going through. And I hope you guys enjoy this podcast just as I have. Have a wonderful and awesome Thursday, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone,